Has the Battle of Bakhmut turned from suburban warfare to proper urban warfare? And what does this mean for the Ukrainian defenders? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It is December 13th, 2022. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's crack into it. So when we look at the overall situation, you can see, again, you've seen a recurrent theme of increasing command and control, or at least organization, by Russian forces. You can see here that the efforts to take Bakhmut and the surrounding villages seem to be sort of on the same tempo, on the same calendar now, so to speak, right? In the past several weeks, we would see sporadic attacks, but they wouldn't necessarily be organized across the front. Here you see that after a quiet 24 hours, now we're seeing simultaneous attacks in efforts to take Soledar, efforts to, of course, take Bakhmut proper, Klitschivka, and even Kurdyumivka, or at least cross the bridge on Kurdyumivka. So all this reflective of some realities that we're going to get into, but what I've talked about for some time, that it seemed like the Russian Ministry of Defense was reconsolidating control. And it appears that Ukrainian intelligence has released publicly that that does appear to be the case. And we're going to break down exactly what that means in a minute. But more important is your updates on the Battle of Bakhmut. And what we can see when we go over to the tactical map, first off, a couple of minor changes. This mapping service, they recognize that territory held consistently for 2 weeks by Ukraine, they mark it as liberated. So these two villages have been marked as liberated. But in the south, you can see the real significant question, the real significant change is that, and they explicitly actually said that the enemy captured 2 blocks of buildings in Bakhmut. And this is, I think, while in the grand scheme of the battle, not that significant itself, I think it marks a significant turning point from the suburban warfare, for lack of a better term, right? A more open warfare based in forests and hills, to urban warfare. And urban warfare is its own beast. I can't emphasize enough how much more tactically and strategically forgiving open warfare can be relative to its urban alternative. Urban cities are designed, right, or urban cities are designed to facilitate all the things that make combat difficult, right? In open warfare, you have a front line that you advance, but in cities, remember, they're designed so that people can be highly mobile. You can live in one neighborhood and walk to your favorite grocery store in another one, go to see your sister in yet another neighborhood, and walk back home a totally different route. It means that it's almost impossible to cut off or isolate an area without using huge amounts of manpower. It means that fields of fire become really complicated, as you could see. 90-degree corners, something that rarely happens in nature, abound out here. And a 90-degree corner is so problematic because it's literally invisible. You could be 3 feet from a wall and not know what's going on around that corner. It's tremendously difficult. And because it has lots and lots and lots of shelter in all sorts of forms, from sewers to apartment blocks to individual homes to vehicles, it just becomes really incredibly difficult to conduct anything that we would think of as maneuver warfare. The rules totally change when you're a commander trying to seize an urban area versus a suburban area. And so while, again, the majority of the fighting now seems to still be on the outskirts in these suburban villages, I think this will mark a turning point if Russia, continues to advance. This will mark a point where the Battle of Bakhmut goes from already incredibly intense to even more grinding. My expectation is that this will have some level of Stalingrad type character. It certainly has many of the conditions, right? A target that is not just tactically and operationally valuable, but actually becomes symbolically valuable, right? Stalingrad, of course, named after the current leader of the Soviet Union, where he just simply refused the humiliation of having his namesake city fall to the Germans. Similarly, Prigozhin simply cannot bear the idea that Bakhmut will be abandoned. The Wagner Group he's put too much of his own fortune and his own success in taking this town. You've got the freezing winter, something that was defining in Stalingrad and certainly defining here. And of course, you have defenders who are committed and protecting their homeland. Of course, the irony of the fact that it's no longer the Russians but the Ukrainians is lost on no one. So this may be the start of Bakhmut turning into Russia's Stalingrad from the other side. But let's talk again about, the Ukrainian military's assessment. Ukrainian intelligence, an independent Ukrainian analytic organization, the Center for Defense Studies, said that Russians are centralizing and systemizing their control of the Western military districts around Kharkiv and Luhansk. And they point out that there's the 20th Combined Arms Army, and that they are broadly in 3 general groupings. But that what's fascinating is that, as we talked about, these groupings are really, really dispersed in terms of who they answer to, right? You have, of course, all of these Russian active duty units. You also, of course, have elements of the 1st and 2nd Corps of the DNR and LNR. You have BARS. That's the Russian Military Combat Reserve, which doesn't quite operate like the U.S. Reserve units, where you can have an entire brigade combat team of National Guard. It seems like Russia keeps just a single general pool of troops, and then they get attached to active duty units. So there's more BARS detachments. You also, of course, have Wagner Group and VDV forces operating in the region. As they point out, Wagner Group and the 1st and 2nd Army Corps, the DNR, are largely responsible for driving the offensive operations in Donetsk, particularly around Bakhmut and the outskirts of Donetsk city. So I think this all indicates to me that Russia has identified the same problem that we have been talking, that it's been obvious, right? It's not like I have some great insight. Anyone that's watching these maps can tell you that Russia simply was unable to even operate strategically. So now that they have more active duty units with more robust command and control, it sounds like they're putting them to good use, trying to make them the centerpiece of a more organized, more systematized military force capable of fighting in concert. Now, Russia, I still think, has a long way to go to catch up to Ukraine, who has the benefit of not just NATO training, where NATO forces simply emphasize command and control much more, or organization, right? Planning, deliberate planning, and units operating in concert. But NATO forces also are just better equipped. They can see the battlefield much better with drones. They can communicate with units much better using cell phones and, of course, the ubiquitous radios that we've seen. So I think that still Russia will be well behind the 8 ball in terms of getting its forces to work together. But as you've seen, while they pay a tremendous, tremendous price for it, they are, in fact, still making some level of gains in Bakhmut. But again, that's part of the Ukrainian plan, I think, is to, I don't think they expect to hold Bakhmut forever. I think they expect to turn Bakhmut into a Russian graveyard that the Russians can plant a flag on top of whenever the Ukrainians get tired of target practice. Anyway, guys, that's all I had for you for today. Thanks so much as always. And until next time. Oh, yeah, be sure, do me a favor. First, check out the Patreon. If you want access to the uncensored combat videos, the kind that I can't show you because of YouTube's censorship, you want to become a member of the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, check out Ground News. They are a huge sponsor of the channel. The link to that is also in the description. They're free. They let you see the hidden bias in your news sources and help you triangulate the truth, which is important in this war of mis and disinformation. That's all I got. See you next time.